Hi guys, here we go again. I'd like to show you a game of mine which I played recently in our league at board 1 where I could make good use of the Czech defense. And yeah, as you all know, I've recorded some videos and I made a chessable course where this opening is discussed in great depth and great detail. And so here we see some practice of this opening, dark squares and stuff, so you will learn some key ideas, what's this fuss all about. Then let's get started. e4. So I had the black pieces. My opponent opened with e4, d6, d4, knight f6, knight c3, c6, and c6 is a signature move of the Czech defense, which covers some squares, attacks b5 and d5, and another trademark or signature move of the Czech defense is queen sortie to a5 or b6, depends on the position. So yeah, what is white supposed to do? Often the white players, they play some neutral stuff like, I don't know, bishop e2 or h3 or bishop d3. Bishop d3 we go e5 directly, and for example a4 is some sort of neutral move which steers the game into the reign of Philidor. So white sees c6 and thinks maybe black wants to play b5, and so a4 prevents b5 and fits in all opening schemes like the Philidor or the Pirz defense. So the game actually started like Philidor or Pirz defense, but c6 makes it independent. Wait, a4, Philidorian, queen a5 is our signature move. By threatening the pawn on e4, we gain some time to get e5 going. So white protects by means of bishop d3. The bishops are placed rather passively. This is the idea of black. Or maybe bishop d2. Actually, there is no discovered attack really threatening. That's why we go e5. So discovered attack would lead to nowhere. The queen simply retreats to d8. And I had many short wins in this variation. The queen on a5 is always ready to it's in the midst of all those tactical skirmishes. For example, white can and has done so, can lose this position within a couple of moves, like knight f3. It's not forced, of course, but I had this game very often. Knight bd7, so white thinks he's playing some sort of Philidor. Bishop c4, ed4, knight d4, and LPD, or loose pieces, drop off. Another one bites the dust. White somewhat surprisingly lose a whole piece by means of the double attack. And yeah, the bishops on d2 and c4, they are the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah, generally speaking, as I mentioned, the queen is always ready for such raids on the 5th rank. So I had this game quite often. Most players, I think they try something like bishop f7, but actually piece is gone, and so the game is lost. And not few opponents have already resigned here in no sooner than move 8. Okay, these are the non-f4 moves, which often leads to a Philidorian game. f4 is the acid test, and yeah, so the computer likes it too, and white gained some space. That's generally speaking, the computers like such variations very much, and it already displays a plus of +1. The computers, the engines have become very self-confident in rating such positions. So computer sees already a large advantage for white. Yes, the acid test and the most severe refutation attempt by white. And queen a4, queen a5. Chargez la femme. As I said, yeah, the foray queen a5 is important positional pillar of the whole setup, and yeah, and the queen on a5 is a constant source of tactics of all kinds. And by attacking e4 indirectly, we gain some time to get e5 going. And yeah, often white lets hang this pawn in blitz, but bishop d3 is the normal move. e5, this continuing the play on the black keys. And the soul of the check is black. So it starts in no sooner than, let's go back, in move 1 we start on the dark squares, and eventually we try to take over the whole dark squared complex, which happens quite often, I would say. Okay, e5, continuing the game. Yeah, white is 2 moves away from an isolated pawns scenario, which occurs time and again, and then we will be able to establish control over the dark square complex. And once we have this control, we will keep it till the end of the game, so we can never lose it. Once the squares are weak, they will be ours forever. Knight f3 is the most played move, and here in principle we have 2 alternatives to the... I played bishop g4, by the way, and we have 2 alternatives, so altogether we have 3 possibilities. E takes d4 is not bad. Knight takes d4 and followed by g6, and bishop g7 is a decent way of continuing, of playing on. Or knight bd7 without bishop g4, so keeping the bishop c8 in the hinterland, and for the time being at least. And so these are in fact the 3 possibilities to play on. Bishop g4, this was my choice. And here I want to show you a vivid example what can happen if white takes too early. Actually, this was played in Giri versus Firouzja. Let's say d takes e5, d takes e5. So if white takes another time, we retreat and take back it later. I'm sorry. So castling is reasonable. Knight bd7, h3, bishop takes f3, queen takes f3, e takes e4, bishop takes f4, and here we make good use of the dark squares, and this position is very nice to play for black. The queen has no decent square, so e2 may be the least evil of all. For example, if white cannot stand the cheeky knight on e5, he feels obliged to take. Takes on e5, queen takes e5, queen a5. We don't take, of course. So this is a lively example what happens if we establish control over the dark squared complex. The dark squares will be ours forever. And here we see another feature of the isolated pawn. You might have heard this before, that yeah, the pawn won't be lost in the near future, I guess. But it's the weak square in front of the pawn which protects us from central attack. So the pawn on e5. E4 works actually as an umbrella, and yeah, the square is weak. White takes, black takes, rook f5, knight d7, and yeah, black has an infinite number of good ways to improve his pieces. Rooks in the middle, for example, and the white play on the f file is a fruitless task. There is nothing to gain, and white is stuck with bad pieces. And the computer, one can think that this position is rated about, I don't know, 0.3 or so, slightly in black's favor, but actually this position is 1.6 in black's favor. So the computer even sees a large advantage for black, even he thinks that that black's winning somewhat. But okay, of course one has to play, but this position occurs time and again, and it's very nice to play, I can say from my experience. Okay, bishop e3. White keeps his feet still correctly. Knight bd7. Castles. Bishop e7. There are no reasonable deviations. And here, normally a queen move comes, or white can insert h3 or h3 g4. So these three queen moves combined with h3 or h3 g4. I should remind you that g4 doesn't win a piece. E takes f4 is our life insurance. Takes back, and yeah, so, and here also those queen moves are reasonable. I should mention that here queen d2 is not a particular good idea, because black can take, and white neither wants to part with the bishop, nor he wants to put the pawn on d4 into the bargain. So this is a mistake. So if white wants to go queen d2, he has to play h3 first. h3 came, in fact. Bishop h5. And here as I said, I faced all queen moves, and queen d2 was played. This has already been played against me. In Bad Visi, so I took on f3, rook takes f3. In Bad Visi, actually, I played knight h5, but I was not that content in retrospect. It was not a bad game. However, I won the game, and everything was all right. So all's well that ends well. But actually, I don't like it particularly. In my course, queen c7 is the main recommendation. A simple and non-committal move. I show you why one has to do something, because castling, I would say it's a slight mistake, a mistake, a blunder, I don't know, because this standard trick is here very good for white. Yeah, taking on d2 would lose a whole piece, so the queen has to retreat, and taking here, and I'm not sure about taking here bishop g5 and pressure on f6. So the missing bishop on e7 could cost black dearly. So I'm not sure. I wouldn't castle here. It's not. You don't have to resign directly, but it's not a pleasant position in my opinion. So that's why no castling. Queen c7 is directed against this line. And here white could play rook af1, castles with a thematic idea b5. There's a reference game where white took, black took back, and black is close to equalizing. Or a4, then we go a6, insisting on b5, and the engine finds it objectively better for white, but black has some counterplay, like knight h5 to f4, or c6, c5, b takes a4, b4, rooks in the middle, bishop d8. So this is the recommendation in my course in great depth, great detail. Yeah, I have mentioned an alternative, and at that day I felt somewhat obliged to use it, and so I like this extravagant bishop lift, which is thematic in the Czech defense. So this occurs time and again, continuing to play on the dark squares. And here at this position I had a deep thought how to proceed, and I tried to recover all those ideas and the recommendations of my course. And I know that bishop d8 has a small drawback, so I was pokering somewhat, because here the most correct way for white to proceed would be b4, which is hard to spot, I think. Queen c7, king h1, castles, for example, is good for white. So b4, then black has to take. Queen b4, and yeah, the idea is knight b5, because the point d6 is somewhat weak. This is a splendid idea. Takes on d2, knight d6. So king e7 would run into knight f5 check. So king f8 takes on d2, bishop b6, and white is somewhat better. c3, e takes d4, king h1, king f1 is a computer line, and is black is a pawn up, but white is, as a matter of fact, white is better. And this was a calculated risk to go this line, to enter this line. I calculated that, I reckoned that white wouldn't go for this line. So it's not lost. In fact, black, as I said, has an extra pawn, but this would have been probably the asset test or the toughness test of bishop d8. My opponent played an idea which I couldn't remember beforehand. In that depth, a combined f takes f5, f takes e5, d takes e5, with rook f5. There is a predecessor game which went d5 and bishop b6, and just go a couple of moves, and so eventually black won that game. It's not that important. So rook f5 was played, and I decided that here I had to think even deeper, and I decided that the idea is not bad, because I decided that I have to play g6, and now the f file is weak forever. And not only the point f6, so once f6 is vacated, then f7 is also weak. So it felt somewhat uncomfortable. But g6 is correct, and the computer doesn't see anything outrageous. It's just a normal game, but yeah. We were both puzzled what's going on. Rook f2 was played. Rook f3 might run into knight e5 someday, so rook f2 is probably better, and this was the choice of my opponent. Here computer suggestion would be e takes d4, bishop takes d4, bishop b6, bishop c4, castles, so jettison the pawn f7 and knight c5 with strong play. So the computer even suggests putting a piece here to tame black's attack with unclear play. So this would be the computer line, actually, e takes d4. However, I went bishop b6, bishop c4. Now we could enter the same line by taking here, for example. This would lead to the same line as given before. Or castling is possible. Actually, admittedly, I thought castling was never a good choice because of the pressure on the f-file and dark squares and stuff, but actually this is a good move. For example, rook af1, queen b4, b3, and the pressure on d4 and the dark squares is sufficient to keep the balance. So this is the computer choice. I decided to not to castle queenside, but rather to play rook d8 to keep the point f7 protected for the time being. Yeah, d5. So white couldn't bear the pressure on the dark squares or the point d4, and went d5. I wasn't also not sure what to do. I decided to take on d5 and offered a draw because I think, as I said, I was not sure, and with the black pieces, so the team match this half point would have helped us, and so it would have been no bad result, and I wasn't sure about this line with the open f-file, and she played g6 or weakened f-file, and so I offered a draw, and I reckoned that white will take with e-pawn, and here beforehand I was not sure what I've spotted rook c8, which I played eventually. Here I was not sure what to do, taking here or castles. For example, castles d6 might be possible, or let's say the more the down-to-earth approach, rook af1, knight e8 wants to go to d6, and black is out of the woods, I would say. And for example, if he plays d6 immediately, computer line is following knight d5, knight takes d6, takes on b6, swaps the queen off, rook d2, knight b6, bishop b6, a b6, rook a1, rook c8, rook d6, rook c4, rook b6, rook, and here the game is somewhat equal. So castles here would be reasonable as well. Actually, I spotted before taking on d5 rook c8 and my idea was simple. Let's say bishop b3. This would, under normal circumstances, this would be the natural reply, and my idea was taking on c3 followed by knight e4, and this is better for black. So this was my idea. And bishop d3, passive move, which I guess this is not that what white wants to play. And here black has quite a pleasant play. So I think white would, under practical circumstances, he would be well advised, would have been well advised to accept the draw and to call it a day, but he felt that white was somewhat superior or had a better position, and but actually he hadn't looked too happy here. Rook c8, maybe rook c8 was a surprise for him. He took on b6. I took back on b6, and I think here also black is out of the woods, I would say. For example, b3. Castles looks quite good for black. Yeah, in fact, here my opponent facing those combined threats, castles, he made a grave error, so he blundered the game at once. Queen e2, and here, yeah, so it's always the dark squares in this opening, and here I was able to carry out a simple double attack, which cannot be parried, and the game is lost. So something on the c file is cured, and double attack. So it's always the queen which is ready for such raids, and the queen is always in the midst of all those tactics. So she often does the whole work alone. Okay, it's against those rules we all have learned when we were beginners. So don't bring out the queen too early. But here in the Czech defense, actually, from beginning, the queen is always in the midst of all skirmishes. Okay, the game is lost. White tried desperately to make something out of it, but this is a whole rook which goes overboard. In fact, white wins back a rook, but has to give up a piece for that. So eventually black emerges a piece up. Rook f1. The queen has only one square, the one where she came from. 96 was the idea. King e7. But the king is safe here. The Steinitz king defends himself. So the king is a strong piece. Knight takes c8. Rook takes c8, and yeah, bishop is hanging, or would be hanging after this check. Bishop d3, but yeah, in fact, the position is so white should be close to resigning here. King h1, 94 with all sort of threat train, royal fork, and I don't know what. So black has everything one can think of. Knight f3, f5, rook e1. Here, rook c3, and white resigned the game. He's somewhat forced to part with the queen, or to exchange, or to lose further material, and even this check wouldn't help. So black has in fact no move which loses the game. So black can play everything. He even hasn't a chance to lose the game. He cannot make something wrong in this position. Okay, so this was an encounter in our league, and it was something special with this f file and g6, so weakening of the f file. But in principle, you have seen some ideas which occur time and again. These are the dark squares, dominance over the dark squares, and white at a certain point is somewhat overextended. Okay, here the at the end of the day, the blunder was decisive, but I think at this point, Black already had the more pleasant game, so he was not only out of the woods, but he had even the better game at that point. D5 was weak, and the dark squares were weakened, and so this blunder might be a natural consequence of the opening. So it cost both players a lot of time. I was somewhat experienced and confident in this position, and this enabled me to win the game eventually. Okay, I hope you liked the Czech defense and the game, and some brief insight into the openings. A lot of players do not even know what a Czech defense is, and it's quite common, quite uncommon these days. The heydays were in the 90s, and so I use it on a regular basis, and often white has no clue what to do against, and so it enables me to win a lot of games by this rare opening. And maybe if you like those ideas, or you like those lines, or you like to surprise your opponent, you can give it a whirl. I think it will be very rewarding if you study the game. And as I said, I made Chessable course, and I analyzed all those variations. Yeah, I know the computer always says big plus for white, but in practice things turn out not to be so easy as the computer displays. So if you like, give it a whirl. If you have any questions, you can contact me, and we can get in touch, and I can give you some hints or answer some questions. And so, see you next time, and I hope you liked the video. Goodbye.